the world of Ethelgard was woven from moonlight. Not just illuminated by it, mind you, but crafted from its very essence. Every rustle of the whisper wind through the ancient silvery trees, every ripple on the surface of the dream-spun lakes, every shimmer of life in the mossy glades, all hummed with the quiet, potent magic of Lunara, the great moon. Lunara was not merely a distant orb, cold and indifferent. She was the watchful eye of the sky, the tender breath that stirred the night, the heart that pulsed rhythmically above, sending down life in a cascade of pearlescent dew. From the highest peaks of the star-kissed mountains, where the snow glowed with an inner light, to the deepest valleys of the verdant heartlands, where the glade lanterns pulsed softly in the twilight, Lunara's influence was paramount. She dictated the tides of the ethereal sea, where ships with sails woven from spun cloud silk glided silently. She nurtured the lumina flora, plants that unfurled their blossoms only under her direct gaze, releasing scents that conjured forgotten memories and whispered forgotten truths. She even influenced the dreams of Ethelgard's people, weaving tapestries of comfort and prophecy, guiding them through the quiet hours of slumber. Children in Ethelgard learned early to speak to Lunara, to offer her thanks for the sweet moon dew that gathered on leaves and flowers each morning, a drink that nourished body and spirit alike. They learned to read her phases like a calendar, not just for planting and harvesting, but for storytelling, for quiet reflection, for celebrations of light and shadow. Lunara was the world's gentle guardian, a constant luminous presence in the vast velvet expanse of the night sky. It was in the village of Silverwood, nestled deep within the verdant heartlands, that a young girl named Lyra lived. Silverwood was famed for its ancient moon-elm trees, towering giants with bark like polished silver, and leaves that seemed to capture and hold the moonlight, making the entire village glow with a soft, ethereal radiance even on the darkest nights. Lyra's home was a small, cozy cottage built into the base of one of these magnificent trees, its roots forming natural arches and alcoves that she loved to explore. Lyra was a creature of the night, much like the gentle forest creatures that shared her home. Her hair was the color of shadowed earth, but it seemed to catch the moonlight and shimmer with threads of silver. Her eyes, wide and deep, were the hue of the deepest twilight sky, often reflecting the stars with an intensity that made others pause. From the moment she was a babe, Lyra had possessed an unusual sensitivity to Lunara's presence. While other children merely saw the moon, Lyra felt her. She felt the subtle shift in Lunara's glow, the almost imperceptible changes in her pulse, the whisper of her breath across the land. It was as if a silver thread connected her heart directly to the heart of the great, celestial body. She spent countless hours perched on the highest branch of a moon elm, a favored perch that overlooked the entire valley, simply watching Lunara. She would sketch the constellations in a small, leather-bound journal, not just as they appeared, but as they felt to her, vibrant, sleepy, mischievous, or serene. She could tell when Lunara was feeling particularly generous, for the moon dew would be sweeter, the lumina flora would bloom with greater fervor, and the village's dreams would be filled with joyful, vivid colors. And she could tell when Lunara was troubled. For the past few cycles, Lyra had felt a subtle, unsettling shift. It had begun as a faint unease, a chill that had nothing to do with the wind. Then the moon dew had seemed a little less sweet, a touch thinner, its magical properties slightly diminished. The lumina flora, usually so eager to unfurl their glowing petals, were now hesitant, their inner light dimmer than usual. The villagers, though they noticed these small changes, attributed them to a particularly long winter or an unusually dry spring. But Lyra knew better. She knew Lunara was fading. It wasn't a phase. Lunara still waxed and waned, grew full and then slender, but the inherent brilliancies, the deep, life-giving glow that pulsed from her very core, was diminishing. It was like watching a vibrant candle slowly, imperceptibly, lose its flame, leaving only a lingering ember. Lyra's dreams, usually filled with shimmering lakes and whispering forests, had grown restless. She would often wake with a feeling of profound sadness, a sense of loss that wasn't her own, but seemed to emanate from the very sky. She saw shadows clinging to Lunara's edges, not the familiar shadows of her phases, but something darker, more profound. One evening, as the first stars began to prickle the deepening violet canvas of the sky, Lyra climbed to her highest perch. The air was still, unusually so. Even the whisper wind seemed to hold its breath. Lunara was a crescent tonight, a slender silver sliver, but even this sliver felt weak. Its light, usually so sharp and clear, seemed muted, diffused, as if filtered through a fine veil of sorrow. Below her, in Silverwood, the moon elms usually pulsed with a gentle rhythmic glow, their leaves exhaling captured moonlight into the night. Tonight, however, their luminescence was faint, almost struggling. The paths, usually illuminated by their soft radiance, were darker than Lyra had ever seen them. The glade lanterns, small, naturally glowing mosses cultivated by the villagers, were flickering weakly, like tired fireflies. Lyra closed her eyes, focusing. She reached out with that silver thread, that innate connection she shared with Lunara. What she felt was a profound ache, a deep, resonant emptiness. It was as if a song was being sung, but the singer was losing her voice, note by note. A shiver, colder than any winter chill, ran down Lyra's spine. "Lunara," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. "What troubles you?" There was no answer, only the deepening silence of the forest, and the faint, struggling glow of the world below. Descending from her perch, Lyra made her way to her grandmother's cottage. Elara was the oldest person in Silverwood, her face a roadmap of gentle wisdom, her eyes like polished amber. She was a keeper of stories, a weaver of forgotten knowledge, and Lyra's closest confidant. Elara's cottage was filled with the scent of dried herbs and old parchment, its walls lined with shelves overflowing with ancient scrolls and curious trinkets. Elara was stirring a pot of spiced moonroot tea over a hearthfire that crackled cheerfully, providing a warmth that felt particularly welcome tonight. Her long silver hair, usually braided, was loose around her shoulders, catching the firelight. "Lyra, my little stargazer," Elara said, her voice soft as velvet. "You are early tonight. Did the moon moths lead you astray?" Lyra shook her head, her expression serious. "Grandmother, Lunara is fading, truly. I feel it. The moondew is weak, the lumina flora are dimming. Even the moon elms, they don't glow as brightly." Elara stopped stirring, her gaze turning to the window, where the faint crescent of Lunara could be seen. A sigh, heavy with ancient knowledge, escaped her lips. "I have felt it too, child. A deep tremor in the heart of the world, a quiet sadness that permeates the dreams." "But why?" Lyra pressed, her brow furrowed. "Has this happened before?" Elara motioned for Lyra to sit beside her on a thick, woven rug. She poured 2 cups of the fragrant tea, handing one to Lyra. "Long, long ago, Lyra, before even my grandmother's grandmother, the stories speak of the Great Dimming, a time when Lunara's light almost vanished entirely. A shadow fell upon Athelgard, and dreams turned to nightmares. The moon elms withered, and the moon dew dried up." Lyra hugged her knees, fear a cold knot in her stomach. What happened then? How was she restored? Elara took a slow sip of her tea, her eyes distant, lost in the mists of time. "The stories are fragmented, child. Whispers and fragments of old songs. They speak of a child, much like you, who felt Lunara's sorrow deeply. A child who dared to listen to the moon's silent cry." "What did they do?" Lyra urged, leaning forward, captivated. "They say," Elara continued, her voice barely a murmur, "that the child embarked on a journey, a quest to find the heart of Lunara. Not her physical heart, mind you, but the source of her light, her magic, her very essence. It was said to be hidden, protected by ancient guardians, and only accessible when Lunara's need was direst." "The heart of Lunara," Lyra repeated, the words resonating deep within her. "Where is it?" Elara shook her head. "That, my dear, is where the stories grow thin. Some say it lies beyond the veil of whispers, a land of forgotten stars. Others claim it is hidden within the sunken spires of Eldoria, a city swallowed by the ethereal sea. Still others believe it is not a place at all, but a song, a forgotten melody that must be sung to reawaken Lunara's slumbering light." Lyra felt a surge of determination. "I can find it, grandmother. I Verweg too. I feel Lunara's pain. I feel her calling to me." Elara gazed at her granddaughter, a faint, knowing smile gracing her lips. "I believe you do, my little stargazer. You are special, Lyra. You carry the moon's whisper in your soul." She reached for a small, intricately carved wooden box on a nearby shelf, It was made of dark, polished moonwood, inlaid with luminous mother-of-pearl depicting the phases of Lunara. Opening the box, Elara revealed a single, shimmering object nestled within a bed of dried lumina petals. It was a pendant, crafted from a smooth obsidian-like stone, but embedded within it was a fragment of what looked like solidified moonlight. It pulsed with a faint, inner luminescence, even in the dim light of the cottage. This, Elara said, handing it to Lyra, was passed down through generations. My grandmother received it from her grandmother, who received it from hers. It is said to be a tear of Lunara, shed during the Great Dimming, caught and solidified by the magic of the Ancient Ones. It will not show you the way, Lyra, but it will help you feel the way. It will amplify your connection, and perhaps when you are close it will guide your heart. Lyra took the pendant. It was cool to the touch, yet a warmth spread through her palm as she held it. The faint glow intensified, mirroring the pulse she felt deep within her own chest. She fastened the delicate silver chain around her neck, the pendant resting just above her heart. It felt strangely familiar, as if it had always belonged there. But where do I begin? Lyra asked, looking at the pendant, then back at her grandmother. Elara rose and walked to a small dusty alcove. She pulled out an ancient heavy book, its cover made of dried, pressed leaves that still retained a faint, woody scent. The pages were brittle, filled with elegant, swirling script and intricate illustrations. This is the luminous compendium of Ethelgard, Elara explained, carefully opening it to a page marked by a dried lumina flower. It contains many forgotten tales, many old maps, and even some star charts that are no longer used. Most believe them to be mere fables now, but not all knowledge is born of the waking world, Lyra. Some truths reside in the realm of dreams and the echoes of time. She pointed to a particularly faded, complex illustration. It depicted a winding path through a forest of impossibly tall, glowing trees, leading towards a mountain peak that seemed to touch the stars. At the base of the peak, a tiny symbol, almost indistinguishable, was etched. A crescent moon, with a single shimmering drop beneath it, remarkably similar to the pendant Lyra now wore. This path is known as the Whisperwood Trail, Elara said, tracing the faint lines with a gnarled finger. It leads to the Whispering Peaks, where the air is thin and the stars sing. They say that at the very summit of the tallest peak, the Sky Pillar, there is an observatory built by the first dreamers, a place where the veil between worlds is thinnest, a place where one can truly listen to Lunara. Lyra's eyes lit up. The Whisperwood Trail, the Whispering Peaks, the Sky Pillar. It felt right. It felt like a beginning. It will be a perilous journey, Lyra, Elara warned, her voice gentle but firm. The Whisperwood is full of ancient magic, some of it wild and untamed. The mountains are unforgiving, and the way to the Sky Pillar is said to be guarded by trials of spirit and heart. Lyra looked down at the glowing pendant, then met her grandmother's gaze, her eyes shining with unwavering resolve. Lunara is fading, grandmother. If I don't go, who will? I have to try. Elara smiled, a deep, comforting warmth radiating from her. Then you must be prepared, my brave little stargazer. The journey will begin at dawn. Gather your courage, Lyra, and remember the moon will always guide those who truly listen. That night, Lyra lay in her bed, the pendant warm against her chest. She watched the faint, struggling light of Lunara through her window, a silent promise forming in her heart. The Sky Pillar. The heart of Lunara. She didn't know what she would find, or what challenges awaited her. But she knew, with an absolute certainty that resonated through her very bones, that she had to go. The fate of Ethelgard, the very dreams of its people, and the fading light of Lunara depended on it. As she drifted into a fitful slumber, her dreams were not of shimmering lakes, but of winding paths, towering peaks, and a distant, shimmering light that called to her, urging her onward. The adventure had begun. The first rays of dawn, hesitant and pale, filtered through the small, leaded window of Elara's cottage. They painted faint patterns on the rough-hewn floor, but their light felt thin, almost brittle, a stark contrast to the robust golden glow that usually heralded a new day in Ethelgard. The lingering tendrils of her dream, of winding paths and a distant shimmering call, pulled at her, urging her awake with a potent sense of destiny. She sat up, the woven blanket falling away, revealing her simple tunic. The air was cool, carrying the scent of damp earth and the faint sweet perfume of night-blooming jessamine from outside. Her heart thrummed a steady, determined rhythm against her ribs. The fear that had gnawed at her during the night had receded, replaced by an unwavering resolve. She had to go. With practiced movements, Elara dressed in sturdy trousers, a long-sleeved tunic, and a practical cloak woven from the resilient threads of the silver-leafed willow, known for its protective properties against both chill and minor magical disturbances. She packed a small satchel, a water skin, a pouch of dried berries and nuts, a flint and steel, and a small smooth riverstone, a gift from her grandmother, said to hum softly with the earth's own song. Her most precious possession, a small silver locket containing a dried lunara bloom, rested against her skin, beneath her tunic. It was her only tangible link to the fading light, a constant reminder of her mission. Before leaving, she paused at her window, looking out over the sleeping village of Oakhaven. The thatched roofs were still shadowed, the narrow lanes deserted. Soon the villagers would stir, their lives continuing in the quiet rhythm of Ethelgard, unaware of the profound shift that had occurred within her heart. A pang of sadness, of leaving behind the familiar comforts, tightened her chest, but it was quickly overshadowed by the urgency of her quest. With a final glance around the small familiar room, Elara slipped out of her cottage, the door latch clicking softly behind her like a whisper of farewell. The morning mist still clung to the fields, blurring the edges of the world, making it feel ancient and untamed, perfectly suited for a journey into the unknown. The well-worn path leading out of Oakhaven wound through groves of ancient oaks, their branches heavy with dew, then dissolved into the deeper, wilder expanse of the Lumina woods. This was where her journey, truly, began. The Lumina woods were not like other forests. Even in the dim light of early morning, a soft internal radiance pulsed from within its depths. The leaves of the ancient trees shimmered with a faint internal glow, and patches of moss on the forest floor pulsed with a gentle violet luminescence. It was a place where light seemed to be born, not merely reflected. As Elara stepped beneath the overarching canopy, the air grew cool and sweet, carrying the scent of damp earth, blooming night moss, and something else, a faint, almost imperceptible tang of ancient magic, like ozone after a distant storm. But even here, in the heart of Ethelgard's most vibrant magical sanctuary, the shadow of Lunara's fading light was visible. Where once the forest floor would have been a tapestry of shimmering greens and blues, now patches of moss were dull, their luminescence dimmed to a sickly gray. The leaves on some branches seemed less vibrant, their inner glow flickering like a dying ember. A heavy silence, unnatural for such a lively place, hung in the air, broken only by the soft rustle of Elara's cloak and the distant mournful call of a Lumina owl. Elara moved cautiously, her senses alert. The path, once clearly marked by the passage of other forest dwellers, was now overgrown in places, swallowed by creeping vines that seemed to coil with a subtle malevolence. She had spent countless hours in these woods as a child, guided by the stories of her grandmother, learning to read the subtle signs of nature and the whispers of magic. But this felt different. The magic was still here, yes, but it was strained, like a beautiful song played on a broken instrument. As she delved deeper, the trees grew taller, their branches intertwining to form a natural cathedral ceiling, pierced only occasionally by a shaft of pale sunlight that seemed to struggle to reach the forest floor. She passed ancient standing stones, their surfaces covered in glowing runes that pulsed erratically, some bright, others barely visible. She remembered her grandmother telling her these stones were the eyes of the forest, imbued with the wisdom of ages. Now, many of them seemed to be closing. Suddenly, a faint whimper reached her ears. It was soft, almost like the rustle of leaves, but carried a distinct note of distress. Elara paused, her hand instinctively going to the riverstone in her pocket. She followed the sound, stepping carefully over gnarled roots and shimmering ferns, until she came upon a small clearing. There, nestled amongst a cluster of wilting Lumina lilies, was a creature she had only ever heard of in tales, a mossling. It resembled a tiny deer-like fawn, no bigger than her hand, its delicate fur a vibrant emerald green, usually glowing with a cheerful, playful light. But this mossling's fur was dull, its glow faded, and it shivered uncontrollably, its small, luminous antlers drooping sadly. One of its tiny hooves was caught beneath a fallen branch, and it struggled weakly, its whimpers growing softer. The sight broke Ilara's heart. These creatures were pure manifestations of the forest's vitality, their very being a testament to Lunara's light. To see one so diminished was a stark reminder of the gravity of her quest. Carefully, Ilara approached, speaking in a soft, soothing voice. "Hello, little one. It's all right. I won't hurt you." The mossling flinched, its large, iridescent eyes wide with fear, but it didn't try to flee. Its struggles had exhausted it. Ilara knelt, assessing the situation. The branch was heavy, but not impossibly so. She gently placed her hands on it, feeling the rough bark beneath her fingertips. She closed her eyes for a moment, focusing on the warmth within her, the subtle hum of the river stone in her pocket. She imagined the strength of the ancient oaks, the gentle lift of the morning breeze. With a deep breath, she pushed. It was a small, almost imperceptible surge of energy, a focused will rather than raw strength, but it was enough. The branch shifted, just enough for the mossling to pull its hoof free. It stumbled, then stood on all four legs, trembling. Ilara waited, her hands still outstretched in a gesture of peace. Slowly, timidly, the mossling took a step towards her, then another. Its dull fur began to glow faintly, a pale, hopeful green. It nudged its head against her offered hand, a soft, almost imperceptible pulse of warmth passing between them. "You're welcome, little friend," Ilara whispered, stroking its head. She felt a connection, a small, vibrant spark of shared life. The mossling, in turn, seemed to be drawing comfort from her presence, its light growing steadily stronger. As if to thank her, the mossling turned and nudged one of the wilting lumina lilies. A faint, silvery dust drifted from its antlers, settling on the flower. Slowly, miraculously, the lily began to unfurl, its petals regaining their vibrant inner glow. The surrounding moss also brightened, a small circle of renewed life in the otherwise fading glade. The mossling then looked up at Ilara, its eyes intelligent and ancient despite its small size. It turned its head, looking towards a less traveled part of the woods, a subtle, almost invisible path that seemed to weave deeper into the ancient trees. It then nudged her hand again, as if urging her to follow. "You want me to go that way?" Ilara asked softly. The mossling bobbed its head in affirmation, its tiny antlers glowing brighter. It was a risk, following a creature of legend down an unseen path, but Ilara felt a deep sense of trust. The mossling's gratitude was pure, its magic undeniably tied to the health of the forest. If anyone knew the secrets of these woods, it would be its inhabitants. "Lead the way then, little one," she said, a renewed sense of purpose filling her. The mossling bounded ahead, its tiny hooves making no sound on the forest floor, its faint glow serving as a beacon in the deepening woods. The path it led her down was indeed hidden, often requiring her to push aside curtains of shimmering vines or step over moss-covered stones that seemed to breathe with a quiet life. The air grew thicker, heavier with the scent of ancient earth and something else, a faint, sweet aroma, like honey and dew-kissed petals. After what felt like hours, the trees began to thin, and a soft, ethereal light shone through the canopy ahead. The mossling paused at the edge of a magnificent glade, its glow now vibrant and strong, and then, with a final grateful flick of its ear, it vanished into the undergrowth, leaving Ilara alone, standing at the threshold of a place of breathtaking wonder. The glade was a sanctuary, untouched by the encroaching dimness of Lunara's fading light. Here, the lumina lilies bloomed in a riot of iridescent colors, their petals glowing with an almost blinding intensity. Ancient trees, their bark like polished amethyst, reached towards the heavens, their leaves shimmering with a constant gentle cascade of starlight. In the very center of the glade stood a tree unlike any Ilara had ever seen. Its trunk was woven from living roots, smooth and pale as moonlight, and its branches, though bare of leaves, sprouted an endless array of delicate, glowing flowers that pulsed with a soft, silver light. This was the heartwood tree, a legendary source of the Lumina Wood's magic. But it was not the tree that captivated Ilara's gaze. Resting against its roots, almost becoming one with the bark, was a figure of startling beauty. She was tall and slender, her skin the color of polished oak, her hair a cascade of living moss and delicate forest flowers, intertwined with strands that gleamed like spun moonlight. Her eyes, deep and knowing, held the verdant wisdom of the forest, and her limbs were gracefully entwined with the roots of the heartwood tree, as if she were a part of its very being. She wore a gown woven from gossamer leaves and shimmering spider silk, and around her neck hung a pendant of polished amber, within which a tiny, perfectly preserved lunara bloom glowed with a faint, steady light. This was Lyra, the moss-spun dryad, the ancient guardian of the Lumina woods. Lyra's eyes, which had been closed, fluttered open. They were the color of deep forest pools, and held a gentle sorrow that mirrored the fading light of Lunara. She pushed herself upright with a sigh, a soft rustle of leaves accompanying the movement. "Welcome, Elara of Oakhaven." Lyra's voice was like the whisper of wind through the leaves, soft and melodic, yet carrying the weight of ages. "I have been expecting you." Elara, surprised that her name was known, curtsied awkwardly. "You have, Lyra. How did you know?" "The whispers of the woods are many, child," Lyra replied, a faint, sad smile touching her lips. "And the fading of Lunara's light affects us all. The heartwood tree itself weeps, and its tears carry the news to those who listen. I felt your small act of kindness to the mossling, and the determination in your heart. It is a rare and precious thing in these shadowed times." Elara felt a flush of warmth at the praise. I have come to find the art of Lunara," she explained, her voice gaining strength. "To restore the light, but I don't know what it is, or where to look." Lyra's gaze softened, her eyes studying Elara with an ancient patience. "The art of Lunara is not a single scroll or a hidden treasure, Elara. It is not something one merely finds, but something one understands and perhaps reawakens. Lunara's light, you see, is born not from a star in the sky, but from the collective dreams and creativity of Ethelgard itself. It is the shimmering manifestation of every song sung, every story told, every painting craft, every dance performed, every act of selfless creation. It is so." Elara listened, captivated. "So, the art is the very essence of creation." "Precisely," Lyra affirmed. "But over generations, Ethelgard has become practical. We have forgotten the joy of creating for creation's sake. The songs are sung to harvest, the stories told to teach, the dances performed for ritual. The pure, unburdened wellspring of imagination has begun to run dry. And as it diminishes, so too does Lunara's light, which draws its power." Lyra gestured around the glade, to the vibrant blooms and the glowing heartwood tree. "This glade is sustained by the residual magic of countless acts of creation that once flowed freely through these woods. But even here, the light flickers. The pure, unadulterated essence of Lunara, the heart of its light, lies in 3 distinct manifestations, scattered across Ethelgard. Each is a living echo of an ancient art, imbued with the purest form of creative magic. They are the silent song, the whisper." Elara's mind reeled. 3 manifestations, not one. This was far more complex than she had imagined. "Where are they?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "The silent song," Lyra began, her voice resonating with a faint echo, "is said to reside within the whispering peaks, high in the Frostvein Mountains. It is the melody that inspires all music, the harmony of the spheres, unheard by mortal ears yet felt in the very soul. It is guarded by the ancient stone spirits, who have long slumbered, their own songs fading with Lunara's light." Lyra then pointed a slender, moss-covered finger towards the east. "The whispering canvas is hidden in the shimmering depths of the sunken grotto, beneath the crystal mire. It is the vision that inspires all colors, the vibrant tapestry of existence, capable of breathing life into any form. It is protected by the elusive sprites of the mire, who fear that its beauty, if misused, could unravel reality itself." Finally, Lyra's gaze settled on Elara, her eyes filled with a profound wisdom. "And the dream weaver, its location is unknown to even the oldest of us. It is the spark of imagination, the wellspring of all stories, the thread that connects all minds in their slumber. Some say it resides within the collective unconscious, others that it is a physical loom, weaving the very fabric of dreams. But without it, the dreams of Ethelgard grow thin and grey, like faded I have to find them all?" Elara asked, a daunting weight settling on her shoulders. "Not necessarily," Lyra replied, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. To fully restore Lunara, yes. But to simply reignite its fading warmth, to give Ethelgard time, you may only need to reawaken one, or perhaps two, of these ancient arts. The current dimness is a warning, not a final doom. The flow has merely slowed. It has not yet ceased entirely. Lyra reached into the folds of her mossy gown and drew forth a small, intricately carved wooden flute. It was made from a branch of the heartwood tree itself, its surface smooth and warm to the touch, imbued with a faint, silvery glow. "This is a seed flute," she said, offering it to Alara. "It holds the dormant melodies of the heartwood. If you can coax a clear, true note from it, one that resonates with your own creative spirit, it may help you in the Whispering Peaks. The stone spirits there respond to the purity of sound. But it requires more than skill. It requires the intent to create, to inspire, not merely to perform." Alara took the flute, her fingers tracing its smooth contours. It felt ancient and powerful, yet delicate. "Before you go," Lyra continued, "let us see if the heartwood tree recognizes your spirit. Play for me, Alara. Play whatever comes to your heart, whatever dream stirs within you." Alara hesitated. She was no musician. She knew a few simple folk tunes from Oakhaven, but nothing that felt worthy of this sacred glade, of Lunara's fading light. Yet, Lyra's gaze was gentle, encouraging. She closed her eyes, remembering the whisper of the wind through the tall grasses, the gentle lapping of the river by her village, the soft hum of her grandmother's lullabies. She thought of the mossling, its tiny, grateful glow. She thought of the vibrant colors of Lunara in her dreams, the shimmering lakes and the distant beckoning light. She brought the seed flute to her lips. She didn't try to play a melody she knew. Instead, she simply blew, letting the breath of her spirit flow through the ancient wood. At first, there was only a soft, reedy sigh. But then a note emerged, clear and pure, shimmering with a silver light. It was a single sustained tone, but it resonated with a profound beauty, carrying within it the essence of wonder and longing. As the note hung in the air, the heartwood tree pulsed with a brighter light. The lumina lilies around them seemed to sway in time, their colors deepening. A gentle breeze, scented with honey and dew, rustled through the glade. And for a moment, Alara felt as if the entire forest was breathing with her, sharing in the simple, unadorned beauty of that single note. Lyra's smile widened, her eyes shining with renewed hope. "The heartwood accepts you, Alara. Your spirit is true. The seed flute will guide you. It will sing the silent song if you listen to its whispers." "Thank you, Lyra," Alara said, her voice filled with gratitude. "I will go to the Whispering Peaks first." "A wise choice," Lyra nodded. "The path through the Lumina woods will lead you eventually to the foothills of the Frostvein Mountains. Be wary, for the mountains are harsh, and the creatures that dwell there are accustomed to the cold and the silence. The fading of Lunara's light has made them even more reclusive, more suspicious of outsiders. Look for the ancient cairn, marked by a swirling pattern of frost. Where the mountain path truly begins, it is there that the air grows thin, and the whispers of the peaks begin. With a final heartfelt farewell, Alara turned and began her journey out of the glade, the seed flute clutched tightly in her hand. The light of the glade seemed to follow her for a time, pushing back the encroaching dimness of the Lumina woods. As she re-entered the shadowed forest, she felt a renewed sense of purpose, armed with knowledge and a tangible tool. The journey ahead was immense, the challenges daunting, but the image of the mossling's renewed glow, the vibrant beauty of Lyra's glade, and the clear, silvery note of the seed flute echoed in her heart. She walked for the rest of the day, the terrain gradually shifting. The dense canopy of the Lumina woods began to thin, replaced by more rugged trees with gnarled branches and thicker bark, adapted to harsher winds. The air grew cooler, sharper, carrying the scent of pine and damp rock instead of sweet moss. The soft, glowing flora of the forest gave way to scattered patches of hardy, silvery lichen clinging to exposed stone. The path became steeper, winding through narrow passes and over rocky outcrops. The ground beneath her feet was no longer soft earth, but loose scree and ancient, fractured stone. Above her, the sky, once glimpsed through a tapestry of leaves, was now a vast open expanse, fading from the pale blues of twilight to the deepening indigo of night. Stars, sharp and numerous, began to prick through the darkness, their light feeling distant and cold. As night fell, Elara sought shelter beneath a large overhanging rock formation. She lit a small, carefully contained fire with her flint and steel, the flickering flames a small island of warmth and light in the vast encroaching darkness. She ate her dried provisions, the silence of the mountains pressing in around her, broken only by the crackle of the fire and the whisper of the wind. She thought of the silent song waiting in the peaks. How does one find a song that is unheard? How does one reawaken something that exists beyond sound? Her fingers unconsciously traced the contours of the seed flute. Nay. She knew it held the key, but the exact mechanism remained a mystery. The climb continued the next morning, relentless and demanding. The air grew thinner with every step, making her lungs ache. The trees became scarce, replaced by vast, desolate slopes of gray rock, scarred by ancient glaciers. The only signs of life were hardy mountain goats, their nimble forms scaling impossible cliffs, and the occasional shadow of a great eagle circling high above. The world seemed to shrink around her, becoming solely about the next footstep, the next handhold. Yet, amidst the stark beauty, there were still glimpses of Lunara's fading touch. Small, frozen waterfalls that should have shimmered with an inner blue light were dull and gray, their ice opaque. The hardy, high-altitude flowers, usually vibrant with color, were pale and brittle. Finally, after days of arduous travel, Elara saw it. In the distance, rising majestically against the horizon, were the Frostvein Mountains. Their peaks were jagged and formidable, eternally capped with snow, their slopes streaked with ancient ice. They looked like the teeth of some colossal, sleeping beast. And nestled among their lower ridges, where the last stunted pines gave way to sheer rock faces, she saw a structure. It was an ancient cairn, just as Lyra had described. Not a pile of stones, but a perfectly formed spiral of gray-blue rocks, each one etched with swirling patterns of frost that seemed to glow faintly, even in the fading sunlight. It marked the true entrance to the higher peaks, a gateway into a realm of ice and stone. Elara stood at its base, the wind whipping at her cloak, carrying with it the scent of cold rock and distant snow. The air here was sharp, biting and profoundly silent. This was the place where the world narrowed, where the whispers of the peaks began. She lifted the seed flute, its smooth wood warm against her cold fingers. The path ahead was daunting, leading into the very heart of the mountains, but a deep, primal call resonated within her. She knew, with unwavering certainty, that the silent song awaited her there, somewhere in the frozen heart of the Frostvein. With a deep breath, Elara stepped through the swirling frost of the cairn, leaving the last vestiges of the lower world behind, and began her ascent into the domain of the stone spirits. The air within the cairn was not merely cold, it was ancient, a profound chill that seemed to seep into the very marrow of her bones, carrying the scent of raw stone and frozen time. As Elara emerged on the other side, the world transformed. The gentle slopes and pine-dusted peaks of the lower mountains were gone, replaced by a jagged, colossal landscape of sheer rock faces and colossal ice formations that pierced a sky the color of bruised amethyst. There was no sun here, only a perpetual twilight cast by a vast pulsating aurora that shimmered like spilled cosmic paint across the zenith, bathing the world in shifting hues of indigo, emerald, and silver. The ground beneath her feet was not solid earth, but an intricate tessellation of crystalline ice and obsidian rock, each shard catching and refracting the aurora's light. Towering spires of granite, sharp as dragon's teeth, clawed at the sky, their surfaces etched with swirling patterns that seemed to shift and writhe, as if the mountains themselves were alive, breathing slow, stony breaths. A deep, resonant hum vibrated through the air, a sound so low it was felt more than heard, a continuous thrumming that was the very heartbeat of the Frostvein. This was the domain of the stone spirits, no doubt. Elara could feel their presence in the tremor of the ground, in the silent, watchful gaze of the towering peaks. They were not malicious, not exactly, but vast and indifferent, ancient beyond reckoning. To them Elara was but a fleeting spark, a whisper in the wind. She pulled her cloak tighter, the thick wool of the mountain sheep feeling woefully inadequate against the profound cold. Her breath plumed in thick clouds, instantly crystallizing on the delicate hairs around her face. The seed flute felt heavier now, a tiny beacon of warmth in her cold grip. The path ahead was not a path at all, but a labyrinth of ice-choked ravines, treacherous scree slopes, and dizzying precipices. Each step was a carefully considered act of balance, her boots finding purchase on patches of rough-hewn rock, or the occasional glimmering ice bridge that spanned an unfathomable chasm. The silence was absolute, save for the deep hum, and the occasional crack and groan of the mountain itself, like an old giant shifting in its sleep. Days blurred into a timeless sequence of climbing, navigating, and enduring. Sleep was a restless affair, huddled in the meager shelter of an overhang, dreaming of warmth and green things. She rationed her dried berries and hard cheese, but hunger was a constant, dull ache. More pressing was the thirst, the water frozen solid in every crevice. She learned to chip away at ancient ice, melting slivers in her mouth, the taste pure and sharp as liquid starlight. As she delved deeper, the geology grew stranger. Rivers of frozen, shimmering mercury snaked through valleys, their surface reflecting the aurora in dizzying patterns. Caves opened like gaping mouths in the rock, revealing interiors crystalline with formations that glowed with a faint inner light, pulsing in rhythm with the mountain's hum. These were not mere caves. They were arteries, veins, perhaps even the organs of the colossal stone spirits. One evening, or what passed for evening in that perpetually twilight realm, Elara found herself at the edge of an immense frozen waterfall. It wasn't water that had frozen, but some luminous, viscous substance that cascaded down a cliff face hundreds of feet high, caught forever in mid-plunge. At its base, a vast circular basin lay, filled with a swirling mist that glowed faintly, as if a cloud of captured starlight had settled there. This place felt different, more concentrated with the mountain's essence. She approached cautiously, the hum growing louder here, vibrating through her bones. As she neared the luminous mist, she felt a profound sense of presence. It was not a single entity, but a multitude, a chorus of silent watchers. These were the stone spirits, observing her with an ancient curiosity. Hesitantly, Elara lifted the seed flute. Its wood, though still warm, seemed to pulse with a faint light of its own, mirroring the aurora above. She closed her eyes, letting the profound silence and the mountain's hum fill her. She thought of the gentle streams of the lower world, the rustling leaves, the songs of birds, and the vibrant life that flowed through the earth. She thought of the silent song, not a sound, but a resonance, a harmony with all things. Then she began to play. No sound, as humans understood it, emerged from the flute. Instead, a wave of pure living energy flowed from the instrument, a warmth that pushed back the profound cold. The ethereal mist in the basin stirred, swirling faster, and threads of light, like luminous veins, began to extend from it, reaching towards Elara. The etched patterns on the surrounding rock faces seemed to deepen, to pulse with the energy emanating from the flute. She wasn't playing notes. She was playing the Waisin of life, the subtle energies that bind the world. The flute resonated with the deep hum of the mountain, not overriding it but harmonizing with it, weaving a complex tapestry of silent vibration. The stone spirits, immense and ancient, responded. The threads of light coalesced, forming into shimmering, translucent figures that were vaguely humanoid, but composed entirely of crystalline light and swirling mist. Their forms were fluid, constantly shifting, like reflections on water or clouds in a strong wind. They had no faces, but Elara felt their gaze, ancient and piercing, assessing her. One of them, larger and more stable than the others, drifted closer. It extended a long, luminous limb, not to touch her but to hover before her, a gesture of silent communication. As it did, Elara felt thoughts, not words but concepts, flow into her mind. Why do you disturb our slumber? What do you seek in the heart of stone? Ishikin. Elara lowered the flute slightly, but kept it held tight. She projected her own thoughts, images of the dying forest, the fading songs, the imbalance in the world below. She showed them the seed flute, its purpose, her quest for the silent song, the harmony that could restore balance. The stone spirit paused, its luminous form rippling. Ye silent song is not a sound, little spark. It is the resonance of creation, the pulse that beats within every stone, every root, every drop of water. It is the memory of the world's first breath. Nini, ninin, aniate, ahau, andashion anisimne. Yin. They have guarded it since the mountains were young. Another spirit communicated, its thoughts sharper, like the edge of a glacier. It is too fragile, too powerful, for the world of fleeting things. It would shatter their minds, overwhelm their hearts. But the world is dying without it. Elara pleaded, her mind filled with images of withered leaves and silent streams. Iribalas is broken. The songs are fading. It needs to be reawakened, woven back into the world. Endi. Canin? The first spirit rippled again. The silent song is not lost. It sleeps. It slumbers deep within the cradle of resonances, at the very heart of the frost vein. Few have ever reached it. None have awakened it without being consumed. Aunina. Kai. Must try, Elara affirmed, her resolve hardening despite the chilling warning. Kai have the seed flute. It was given to me for this purpose. The spirits seemed to confer, their luminous forms swirling together, exchanging silent thoughts. Finally, the larger spirit once more. A path to the cradle of resonances is perilous. It tests not only the body, but the spirit. It will ask you to shed all that is not essential. If you are truly worthy, the mountain will guide you. Yes, she. As it spoke, the luminous mist in the basin began to part, revealing a narrow spiraling tunnel that corkscrewed down into the very core of the mountain. It was dark, save for the faint, inner glow of the rock itself, and the hum emanating from it was immense, almost deafening in its intensity. Ye go forth, little spark, the spirit's thoughts echoed. May your song be true. I nay. With a deep breath, Elara stepped into the swirling opening. The air immediately grew warmer, though it was still a dry mineral heat, not a living warmth. The passage was steep, descending into the earth, and the walls were not smooth, but intricately carved with ancient symbols and patterns that seemed to pulse with a slow, inner light. The descent was long and arduous. Sometimes the tunnel narrowed to a crawl space, forcing Elara to wriggle on her belly, her pecs scraping against the rough rock. Other times it opened into vast cathedral-like caverns, their ceilings lost in shadow, their floors glistening with strange mineral deposits. She saw phosphorescent fungi that glowed like scattered jewels, and rivers of slow-moving, glowing magma far below, casting flickering shadows that danced like ancient spirits on the walls. The hum of the mountain grew steadily louder, becoming a physical presence that vibrated in her teeth, her bones, her very soul. It was a complex sound, not a single tone, but an intricate chord, a symphony of vibrations. As she listened, Elara began to discern individual notes within the hum, the deep bass of the earth's core, the sharper resonance of quartz veins, the slow, rhythmic pulse of underground rivers. It was the mountain singing to itself, a song too vast for human ears. She ate and rested when she could, though the sense of time had completely dissolved. She was simply moving, deeper and deeper, driven by an unwavering conviction. The seed flute became a constant companion, a source of comfort and guidance. She found herself playing it silently sometimes, letting its vibrations harmonize with the mountain's hum, feeling the subtle shifts in the rock, the currents of energy that flowed through the earth. After what felt like an eternity, the tunnel opened into a truly magnificent chamber. It was circular, immense, and unlike anything she had ever seen. The walls, ceiling, and floor were not merely rock, but composed entirely of colossal, translucent crystals, each one glowing with a soft internal light. The air was warm, almost balmy, and strangely fragrant, like ozone and ancient flowers. In the very center of the chamber stood an enormous, perfectly formed crystal, taller than any tree, wider than any house. It was shaped like a multifaceted seed, glowing with an intense, pure white light that seemed to pulse with the mountain's hum. This was the cradle of resonances, she knew it instantly. And within it, the silent song slumbered. The hum here was overwhelming, a symphony of pure vibration that filled every cell of her body. It was beautiful, terrifying, and utterly profound. She felt as though she stood at the very core of creation, at the place where the world's first breath had been taken. As she approached the colossal crystal seed, she saw that it wasn't solid. Within its shimmering depths, she could discern faint ethereal patterns, like swirling galaxies or intricate tapestries of light. They moved slowly, majestically, each pattern a different resonance, a different song that made up the whole. Elara reached out a hand, her fingers trembling. As she touched the smooth, warm surface of the crystal, she felt an immense surge of energy flow into her, overwhelming her senses. She saw visions, the birth of stars, the first single-celled life, the growth of forests, the flow of rivers, the quiet wonder of a snowflake forming. She felt the joy of a bird's first flight, the sorrow of a mountain crumbling, the silent wisdom of ancient stones. It was too much. Her mind reeled. Her body threatened to collapse under the sheer weight of pure existence. This was the consumption the stone spirits had warned her about. The silent song was not a melody to be played, but a torrent of pure, unadulterated life force. How could she possibly contain it, let alone channel it into the world without being utterly annihilated? Then she remembered the seed flute. It was not merely an instrument, it was a conduit, a vessel designed to hold and temper this very power. With a desperate gasp, Elara pulled the seed flute to her lips. She didn't know what to play, what sound to make. But as the wood touched her skin, a calming presence flowed through her. The flute seemed to hum in response to the colossal crystal, drawing upon its energy, not to overwhelm, but to harmonize. She closed her eyes, focusing not on sound, but on intention. She imagined the dying forest, the silent streams, the fading songs. She imagined the earth yearning for balance, for the return of its true voice. She focused on the seed flute as an extension of herself, a living part of the mountain, a part of the silent song itself. And then, she played. Again, no sound emerged, not in the way humans understand it. But a different kind of song resonated. It was a song of life, of pure, creative energy. It flowed from the flute, not as a destructive torrent, but as a gentle, shimmering stream of light that intertwined with the immense vibrations of the cradle of resonances. The colossal crystal seed pulsed brighter, its internal patterns swirling with renewed vigor. The entire chamber began to hum with a new, vibrant energy. The light from the seed flute danced, weaving itself into the fabric of the silent song, drawing out threads of its essence, tempering them, shaping them, preparing them to be carried back to the world above. Elara felt the power flow through her, immense but manageable, filtered and refined by the flute. She was a bridge, a living conduit between the ancient heart of the world and the yearning surface. She was playing the silent song, not as a performance, but as a reawakening, a gentle coaxing of the world's deepest harmony. As she continued to play, the glowing patterns within the cradle of resonances began to expand, reaching out beyond the crystal itself, swirling through the chamber, touching the crystalline walls. The entire chamber began to resonate with the silent song, a symphony of pure, silent harmony that embraced Elara, filling her with a profound sense of connection to everything. She played for a long time, an immeasurable period in that timeless place. She felt the seed flute slowly, steadily drawing forth the essence of the silent song, gathering it, distilling it, until it felt like a contained, living warmth within the flute itself. The wood pulsed with a quiet, vibrant light. When she finally lowered the flute, the colossal crystal seed was still glowing, still humming, but its intensity had subtly softened, as if a great sleeper had stirred and stretched, ready to awaken. The chamber felt lighter, imbued with a gentle, profound peace. Elara looked at the seed flute. It was no longer just warm. It thrummed with a contained energy, a vibrant life force. The silent song was within it, not fully, not entirely, but enough. Enough to begin the healing. Her journey, however, was far from over. She had brought the silent song forth, but now she had to carry it back, to weave it into the very fabric of the fading world. She had to climb out of the deep heart of the frost vein, back through the labyrinthine tunnels, past the watching stone spirits and into the world of the sun, if it still shone. The greater challenge, the weaving, still awaited her, but she carried the essence of the world's harmony with her now. With a renewed sense of purpose, Elara turned towards the tunnel that would lead her back to the surface, the seed flute a living beacon in her hand. The frost vine, having shared its deepest secret, now awaited her return to the world, to see if the little spark could truly rekindle the song of life. The tunnel, once a path of eager descent, now felt like a test of endurance on the climb. Each step Elara took was a conscious effort, the air growing thinner, colder, and bearing the scent of dust and silence instead of the damp, earthy breath of the deep world. The seed flute in her hand, warm and pulsing with a gentle light, was her only companion and her steady beacon. Its soft glow pushed back the encroaching shadows, revealing the ancient rock walls, still etched with the faint, faded symbols of forgotten journeys. She remembered the Frostvane's promise, its quiet hope, and that memory fueled her weary limbs. The world above was waiting, and it was waiting for her. Finally, after what felt like an age of climbing, the tunnel narrowed to a crack, then widened again, and Elara felt a distinct shift in the air. It was sharper, colder, and carried a profound emptiness. Pushing aside a tangle of withered roots that clung to the tunnel's mouth like skeletal fingers, she emerged onto the surface. Her heart, which had been so resolute in the depths, faltered. The world that greeted her was not the vibrant tapestry of greens and golds she remembered from her childhood tales. It was a landscape of muted grays and browns, stretched beneath a sky that was perpetually twilight, a sickly bruise of purple and dull orange where the sun should have been. The air was still, silent, devoid of birdsong or the rustle of leaves. Trees stood like gnarled statues, their branches bare, their bark flaking like old skin. The ground beneath her feet was cracked and dry, and where moss and wildflowers should have bloomed, only brittle husks remained. It was a world that had forgotten how to breathe, a song silenced. The sun indeed had not shone truly for a very long time. A wave of despair, cold and heavy, threatened to engulf her. How could one small spark, even one holding the essence of harmony, rekindle such profound desolation? But then, the seed flute warmed further in her hand, its light strengthening, and a memory surfaced. The ancient patient wisdom of the stone spirits, the gentle pulse of the Frostvane. They had believed in her. She had come too far, carried too much hope to falter now. This was not the time for despair, but for purpose. The weaving. That was her task. She understood now that it was not merely a performance, but an act of profound reconnection. The world's harmony was not just a beautiful sound. It was the intricate web of life itself, the subtle currents that flowed between earth and sky, water and light, growth and decay. The sun's dimming was but a symptom, a consequence of this fundamental disharmony. The threads of life had frayed, broken, and now she had to mend them, re-spin the vibrant tapestry. She needed a place of power, a nexus where the world's energies once converged, a place that resonated with the very core of life. Her mind turned to the legends of the Sunstone Summit, the highest peak in the land, where the Ancient Ones said the world first drank the light of the sun. It was a perilous journey, but it was the only way. With renewed resolve, Elara began to walk. The journey was long and arduous. Days bled into nights, indistinguishable under the bruised sky. She subsisted on the few hardy berries she could find, and the clean, cold water from hidden springs that still trickled from the mountainsides. The seed flute guided her, its light growing stronger when she was on the right path, its warmth a comfort against the chill that permeated the world. She saw no other living creatures, only the ghostly remains of what once was. Yet with each step, the essence of harmony within her seemed to grow, strengthening her own resolve, intertwining with her very spirit. Finally, after weeks of solitary travel, she stood at the base of the Sunstone Summit. It towered above her, a jagged sentinel piercing the eternal twilight. Its slopes were barren, covered in scree and frost-kissed rock, but at its very peak, she could discern a faint, almost imperceptible glow, the last dying ember of the sunstone itself, waiting for its rekindling. The climb was brutal. The air was thin, biting, and whipped around her in icy gusts. Her fingers and toes ached with cold, and her muscles screamed in protest. But the seed flute pulsed steadily, a warm, living heart in her hand, urging her onward. It was almost as if the instrument itself was pulling her towards the summit, a homing beacon to its ancient purpose. When she finally reached the peak, breathless and trembling, the sunstone lay before her. It was a colossal crystal, once brilliant gold, now dulled to a murky amber, its light barely a whisper. Around it, the very air felt broken, vibrating with a dissonant hum, like a forgotten chord struck out of tune. This was the heart of the disharmony, the place where the world's song had fractured. Elara knelt before the sunstone, placing the seed flute carefully upon its surface. The flute immediately began to glow with a fierce golden light, mirroring the faint pulse of the crystal. She closed her eyes, drawing upon the essence of harmony she had carried from the frost vein. She felt the ancient primal rhythm of the deep earth, the flowing grace of hidden waters, the whispering patience of the stone spirits, and the profound, silent yearning of the surface world. She was not just Ilara anymore. She was a conduit, a living bridge between the world's longing and its potential. Taking a deep breath, she lifted the seed flute to her lips. No melody she had ever known prepared her for the music that emerged. It was not merely notes, but a symphony of light and warmth, a tangible stream of pure, vibrant energy. The first sounds were hesitant, a gentle murmur, like a nascent spring after a long winter. It was the sound of earth awakening, of dormant life stirring beneath the desolate surface. As she played, the light from the seed flute intensified, flowing into the dull sunstone. The crystal, which had been so dark, began to brighten, a faint golden aura spreading outwards. With each passing moment, Ilara poured more of herself into the music, letting the harmony she carried resonate through every fiber of her being, out through the flute, and into the very fabric of the world. The music swelled, growing in complexity and power. It became a vibrant tapestry of sound, the rustle of leaves that were not yet there, the chirping of birds that still slept, the gentle lapping of waves on distant shores, the hum of unseen insects, the deep, resonant heartbeat of the earth itself. It was the song of life, brought back from the brink of silence. And as the song grew, the world responded. Faint tendrils of green began to unfurl from the barren rock around the sunstone summit. Tiny, resilient flowers, brilliant in their hues, pushed through the cracked earth, exhaling a sweet, delicate perfume into the cold air. The air itself warmed, losing its icy bite, becoming fresh and clean, filled with the promise of life. Ilara felt the immense strain, her vision blurring, her body trembling with the effort. Every cell in her being was singing, echoing the world's reawakening. But she could not stop. Ooh. The disharmony was still present, a faint, stubborn echo beneath the rising tide of life. She had to weave it completely, mend every single thread. She focused on the sky, on the bruised twilight that had held the world captive. She played a melody of pure light, of boundless energy, of radiant warmth. The seed flute pulsed with an almost blinding intensity, and the sunstone on the peak began to glow with an inner fire, its amber hue deepening into a brilliant pulsing gold. Slowly, imperceptibly at first, the bruised purples and dull oranges of the sky began to shift. A faint golden glow appeared on the distant horizon, pushing back the lingering shadows. It was hesitant, shy, like a child waking from a long sleep. But then, as Ilara's song reached its crescendo, pouring every last drop of her strength and purpose into the weaving, the light intensified. A single brilliant ray of pure golden sunlight pierced through the lingering gloom, striking the sunstone summit. The crystal flared, exploding with light, sending ribbons of vibrant energy cascading down the mountainside, washing over the awakening landscape. And then, with a glorious, breathtaking rush, the sun itself emerged. Not the sickly, distant glow, but the full, radiant orb, a blazing beacon of warmth and life, painting the world in hues of gold, crimson, and vibrant blue. The sky cleared, becoming an endless expanse of cerulean. Below, the world exploded into life. The withered trees, touched by the golden light, burst forth with emerald leaves and fragrant blossoms. Rivers, long sluggish, now sparkled and rushed. The air filled with the jubilant chorus of birdsong, the buzzing of bees, the gentle rustle of new grass, swaying in a soft breeze. The silence was banished, replaced by the vibrant, joyous symphony of a world reborn. Ilara, utterly spent, sank to her knees, the seed flute falling from her grasp. Day. It didn't clatter against the rock. Instead, as it touched the now brilliant sunstone, it dissolved into a shower of golden motes, shimmering like stardust, and flowed into the crystal, becoming one with the light it had helped to rekindle. Its purpose was fulfilled. She looked out at the world, bathed in the glorious, life-giving light of the sun. Tears streamed down her face, not of sorrow or exhaustion, but of profound joy and wonder. The song of life had returned. The little spark had indeed rekindled the harmony. Ilara remained on the sunstone summit for a long time, watching the world awaken. She was no longer just Ilara, the girl who had descended into the Frostvein. She was Alara, the weaver, who had helped the world remember its own song. Her journey was complete, not with a grand title or a throne, but with the quiet understanding that she had played her part in the grand eternal dance of life. When she finally descended, days later, the world was a riot of color and sound. Animals once hidden, now moved freely. Children laughed and played in fields bursting with wildflowers. The air hummed with vitality. No one recognized her as the one who had brought back the sun, and she did not seek recognition. Her reward was the vibrant life all around her, the warmth on her skin, and the joyous, ceaseless song of the world, now whole and harmonious once more. She knew that the Frostvein, in its deep, quiet wisdom, would feel the return of the sun's warmth, a gentle echo reaching even into the heart of the earth, knowing its hope had been fulfilled. And as for Alara, she simply became a part of the world's rediscovered harmony, a guardian of its precious song, forever listening to the music of life, content in the quiet knowledge that the sun would shine brightly for all the tomorrows to come.